Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. Friday edition, early today, to go ahead and get everything out of the way so I can get ready for the big Little League game that I got to coach this afternoon, and also so I can get ready for Preds going up against the Winnipeg Jets this afternoon. So I'm going early today. And also because I've noticed when I go on Friday, a lot of you tune out by the time it gets to the normal time for the show. So I'm going to be doing Friday shows occasionally, but I'll be doing them earlier in the day when it comes to Friday. So I appreciate all of you coming and hanging out. Hope you have had a good gambling run. The last 4 picks I gave you, they went 3-1. Not the kind of guy to brag, but the last 4 that I gave you, we went 3-1. I've got more gambling picks coming your way. Much to get to, but I want to tell you should go to sportsbookreview.com right now to make sure that you get the best deal anywhere when it comes to gambling. Still some prop bets out there for the second, third, and fourth rounds, and still a lot to get into with the NBA. I believe there are 3 games in the NBA tonight, 1 game in the NHL. Big weekend to come. Go to sportsbookreview.com to make sure you get hooked up there. All right, lots to get to. Lots to get to. Let me give you the rundown. NFL draft reaction, much to discuss there. We've got peace in Korea. Is Donald Trump going to win the Nobel Peace Prize? As I believe I was one of the first people to tweet or talk about this at all with the direction things were going. It's an amazing day if you care about such things as the world not blowing up, which evidently most people in the media do not. We've got Jason Witten potentially retiring for the Dallas Cowboys to join Monday Night Football, and an NBA and NHL gambling picks by the end. All right, but let's start here and also remind you, you need a brand new mortgage. It's the end of April. Right now is the perfect time to go get a brand new mortgage. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com, thehomeloanexpert.com. Tell them Clay Travis, tell Ryan Kelly, my guy, that Clay Travis sent you, and you can be well on your way to saving a bundle with the right refi, getting pre-qualified, or just making sure that you have the best possible rate anywhere locked in. Now's the time to act. Do it today. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. If you do it before the end of April, today I'm telling you, go call them. You can get a free weekend in Vegas for Outkick the Weekend, which I believe I'm going to start selling next week. All right, NFL draft reactions. I appreciate the fact that the Cleveland Browns were willing to take a big swing. I don't think Baker Mayfield is the right big swing for them, but go figure, the Browns are going to Browns. Here's my issue. I said it yesterday. Baker Mayfield plays on the edge. On a positive side, if you want to talk about a really cool story, Baker Mayfield is the first person in any pro sport to walk on in college and end up the number 1 overall draft pick in America. So, if you have a dream, don't allow other people to tell you that you can't achieve it. It would have been very easy for Baker Mayfield to give up college football, to go to the University of Texas probably and kick back and become a normal student. But he made the decision, no, I believe I've got the talent to be able to be good at this. He walked on at Texas Tech and was outstanding. He then went to Oklahoma and he walked on, and he now has become the overall number 1 draft pick in America, and he's making over $30 million guaranteed. All right, I absolutely love that story because it's the ultimate helicopter dick story. A lot of people out there are mosquito dicks. They don't chase their dreams. They allow themselves to slide into slow death through obsolescence. Take a chance like Baker Mayfield did. If you believe you have a talent, chase it, okay? Chase your talent. Chase your dreams. Don't give up because it's hard. I can speak to it specifically for what I get to do now. The reason why I get to do what I do now, and most people don't, is because I worked for years for virtually nothing. And Baker Mayfield, even when he didn't have a single scholarship offer, he kept working. Now, I don't believe that Josh Allen is going to be very good at Buffalo either, right? I'm not a believer in Josh Allen based on his completion percentage, but I will say this. It's another good lesson for you. The guy did not have a single scholarship offer coming out of high school. He went to junior college. Even leaving junior college, he only had 2 scholarship offers, Eastern Michigan and Wyoming. And he followed his dream, and now he's going to make millions of dollars as well. Not everybody is going to be successful following their dream, but I can guarantee you that the only thing you will regret when you get older, and these are what many of my critics are, is they regret the fact that they weren't willing and able to take the chances that I took, that they didn't continue the helicopter dick lifestyle that they decided to live like mosquito dicks. Most people who are angry in this world are mosquito dicks because they don't resent your success. They resent the fact that you had the balls to actually take a chance. Also, Lamar Jackson kind of comes out of nowhere to end up being a Heisman Trophy winner. All of these stories, 4 of the top 5 recruits, even Sam Darnold was not a top recruit. 4 of the top 5 draft picks in the first round, nobody would have bought stock in them when they were leaving high school. That's something I think for everybody to take a lesson from. It's instructive. It's helpful. That's the story of the first round of the NFL draft. All right, what else did I love? I loved Calvin Ridley to the Falcons. I think he's going to be great with a solid quarterback. I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And some of you guys out here need to stop thinking like mosquito dicks. Sam Darnold was not a highly sought-after recruit. He was a 3-star. He was a 3-star in most services. I loved Rashaan Evans. He was absolutely the perfect fit for the Titans. I like that pick. I loved Saquon Barkley to the Giants. Odell Beckham Jr. in conjunction with Eli Manning and Saquon Barkley, I think is going to make a tremendous difference. And I think it is going to be an outstanding offense for the New York Giants. Maybe a little bit of a revitalization of everything that has to do with the New York Giants football. I think the Jets got an absolute steal. They made a helicopter dick move to get up to 3. And then I think they got the guy they would have taken at number 1 overall. Absolute home run for the Jets. I'm not convinced in his success, but I think getting Sam Darnold at 3 was better than the Jets could have ever hoped for. I think also Josh Rosen to the Cardinals at 10. I told you he was my number 1 guy. I ranked them thusly. Josh Rosen 1, Sam Darnold 2, 3-spot Baker Mayfield, 4-spot Josh Allen, 5-spot Lamar Jackson. I think that getting Josh Rosen at 10 was absolutely a steal if they can keep him healthy. I think that's the challenge that he's going to have. What did I think of Josh Rosen's 9 mistakes comments? I think the way he phrased it was wrong. I think he made the comment as if the draft picks themselves were the mistakes. It's not the draft picks' fault that they took him. What he should have just said was, I'm going to make all 9 teams pay who passed on me. And that's not an uncommon comment. And that's what you would want somebody to say when they get left behind. But saying that they made mistakes implies that they drafted the wrong person. I'm sure that many of the guys who went above him are going to end up being better than the teams, than maybe even he will be. So I think that's certainly the truth about how it all goes. Here's the other thing. Nobody will say it, but the amount of social justice warrioring on behalf of Lamar Jackson last night was fucking absurd. All right? There is no bias against black quarterbacks in America today, despite the fact that people want to argue that there is bias against black quarterbacks in America today. A couple of years ago, Jameis Winston got drafted number 1 overall, despite the fact that he may well have gotten away with rape, despite the fact that he had millions of dollars in outstanding legal fees out there. Cam Newton went number 1 overall, despite the fact that he had gotten kicked out of Florida for theft and the fact that he may well have gotten paid and had all the scandal surrounding him. Michael Vick got back into the league to play quarterback and made millions of dollars despite the fact that he had served federal prison time in Fort Leavenworth. And Jamarcus Russell went number 1 overall, even though anybody who had watched the SEC knew he was insanely raw. Was he a supreme, unbelievable talent at the quarterback position? Yes, but he reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. Calm down. I just cross-racial compared quarterbacks. I know it's almost never allowed. He reminds me a lot of Josh Allen, a guy who has a big arm that hasn't proven yet that he deserves to be all the way at the top of the draft. Lamar Jackson didn't get drafted high. And by the way, first round is still pretty high because, and I don't think anybody else wanted to say it, he scored a 13 on the Wonderlic. The NFL has become an incredibly complicated position at quarterback to play in the last 20 years. There has not been anybody in the last 20 years that has scored that low on the Wonderlic and has been a success in the league. Maybe Lamar Jackson is going to be the exception rather than the rule, but it's like nobody would point out the fact that the dude scored a 13. That's the average score, roughly, of what a janitor would score. Okay? That ain't a high score. The average Super Bowl winning quarterback right now scores a 34. Over 30. That's a pretty high intelligence level. Okay? 20 is average intelligence, and it's not scaled where you would expect. 13 means you could take a 50-question test and get like 8 questions right. And the questions are some such things as, what's the 9th month of the year? I'm not telling you need to know like what all these different trains take off at different times, which one's going to land first. Lamar Jackson is not a smart man, all right? He tested really poorly. And as a result, if you had millions of dollars and your franchise depended on who you were going to invest in, Lamar Jackson would not be your choice. Now, Lamar Jackson is not dumb because he's black. He's just dumb, all right? His test scores on the Wonderlic reflect that he is not a very smart man. There are other people who have tested very smart from all different courts, all different backgrounds, right? You look at the data and say, what do I want to do here? Lamar Jackson is not smart. Maybe he is able to still be successful despite the fact that he is not smart. But the Wonderlic matters. And nobody will even talk about it because they're all afraid that they'll be called racist. Well, you know what's racist? Assuming somebody is going to be dumb because of the color of their skin. Lamar Jackson tested poorly because Lamar Jackson is not smart, not because Lamar Jackson is black. Russell Wilson tested really high. You know who actually tested really high? Colin Kaepernick. Cam Newton was fine, average intelligence. When you look at the breakdown of quarterbacks, this was a glaring flaw of Lamar Jackson, in conjunction with the fact that he played for Bobby Petrino, who gets his quarterbacks into best possible situations. The fact that I bet Bobby Petrino said, yeah, you know what, I think he probably will have some trouble in the when it comes to the NFL. Jameis Winston scored fine on the Wonderlic. Again, scoring a 20 or above. I look at these things as pass-fail. If you score a 20 or above, you are smart enough to be quarterback. All right? That is all I care about. If you don't score 20 or above, I'm taking you off my board. And I've been consistent on this for years. Go back and look at it. As the Wonderlic gets more, as playing quarterback becomes more complex, you have to make a series of instantaneous decisions based on what you're seeing on the opposite side of the field. Your brain has to function insanely well. And ultimately, you cannot in any way manage to rely solely upon the play caller. You have to be able to address what's going on in the field, and I think people don't believe that Lamar Jackson is going to be able to do that. I don't know why nobody can say that. I don't know why you can't reference somebody's intelligence when you're talking about a position like quarterback. Your race doesn't determine how smart you are. But if you don't score well, that should be talked about just like people talk about Josh Allen having a really bad completion percentage. It's crazy to me that Josh Allen's tweets from when he was 14 years old became a bigger story than Lamar Jackson's 13 on the Wonderlic. Guess what? Vince Young tanked on the Wonderlic, tanked in the NFL. You run through the list of guys in recent vintage who have done really poorly on the Wonderlic, and there's nobody to point to who has contended at a high level for the Super Bowl. I would use that as dispositive evidence that maybe they are not going to be good enough at the quarterback position because they can't process information fast enough. That's the truth. And I don't know why nobody else will say it, but look at the Wonderlic scores, apply them, just like you would a 40-yard dash time, just like you would a bench press. It is an attribute that helps to determine whether or not you are capable of playing the position at a high level. Jamarcus Russell got a 24. I mean, I'm not saying, again, the pass-fail is 20. I wouldn't draft anybody who got below a 20. The most successful quarterback right now who got a low Wonderlic score in the NFL is Derek Carr. And I believe Derek Carr got right around a 20, which is the same score that Cam Newton got. So that's the truth. And people say, well, what about Ryan Fitzpatrick? He got a 50 on the Wonderlic, or whatever. He got a 48, and he still wasn't very good. Did you ever think that the reason why Ryan Fitzpatrick may have been able to last in the NFL as long as he has is because of his supreme intelligence? In other words, a high Wonderlic score does not, I want you to follow this logic. A high Wonderlic score does not guarantee that you are going to be successful. But a low Wonderlic score does guarantee that you are unlikely to be successful. So anyway, I would just factor that in. Tim Tebow had issues. I never think Tim Tebow knew what he was doing in the NFL when he stood over the line of scrimmage. He scored a 20. Jake Locker never looked like he was very comfortable in an offensive system. He scored a 20. I think that you either grab the intellect in a hurry and your brain works quickly, or it doesn't, and the Wonderlic is designed to test rapid process of information. And you have to process a lot of information rapidly to play quarterback at the highest level in the league right now. I don't know why that's remotely controversial, but that's my breakdown of the NFL. This story, I think, is amazing, and it's not getting enough attention. For 70 years, there has been an unresolved war between North and South Korea. And amazingly, what we are witnessing right now appears to be almost the equivalent of the Berlin Wall coming down in terms of its seismic implications in both Asia and the world as a whole. Several years ago, George W. Bush said 3 countries were a part of the axis of evil: Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. And then he decided to invade the least dangerous of those countries, Iraq, and spend $1 trillion trying to make an American-style democracy in Iraq. And it has not worked well, okay? It has not worked well at all. And we wasted a ton of money on that decision. And this is why I think the liberal and the conservative at times labels aren't accurate, because that was an insanely liberal decision to go into another country and attempt to foment democratic regime change and spend $1 trillion when our country is falling apart at the time, so that you can go into that country which had nothing to do with 9/11 and try to remake it. I think it was a bad idea. It was a really bad idea. At the time, I said it was a bad idea. It had nothing to do with George W. Bush being a Democrat or a Republican. It was a poor decision. And I like Donald Trump in the fact that he said going to Iraq was the wrong decision. Korea coming to peace. I don't think you can understate how amazing the possibility is here. And I also don't think that you can say it's an incredible coincidence that 16 months into Donald Trump's tenure as president, after all the saber rattling he did, after all of the discord that existed between him and Kim Jong-un, here's what Trump did behind the scenes. He got Xi from China to make a decision to shut down the North Korean-Chinese border so that there was not massive trade going back and forth between the two, okay? Which stifled North Korea from an economic basis. Simultaneously, he ratcheted up the public pressure on Kim Jong-un by calling him Little Rocket Man, by going after him. And you know what I think that did? I think that knocked North Korea off of this idea that they could continue to do whatever they wanted to do and there were going to be no consequences. I think they legitimately feared that Donald Trump was going to strike their country. And I think Kim Jong-un, to his credit, was smart enough to understand that if that happened, his entire regime would be wiped out and his entire country would be wiped out, and that would not be good for him. And so as a result, he has suddenly come to the negotiating table. Donald Trump, if this negotiation with Korea continues as it's going right now, and if the negotiation with America goes as it appears it's going to go, Donald Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He will have solved the most intractable foreign relations quagmire that has existed in the history of the United States in the modern era. And nobody else could have done it. And this is what I say, why I believe there's possible good results coming from the Donald Trump administration. I'm not a zealot. I'm not a hardcore leftist. I'm not a hardcore rightist. I'm a practical guy. I'm a reasonable guy. I'm a radical moderate. What Trump did and what Trump is actually a common style of leader that exists across the world. He's a strong man who is charismatic and appeals to his base in order to gain power. And as part of that, Donald Trump views power as emanating from him and not from his country, and he views relationship as more important than geopolitical strategy. I think that is to Donald Trump's benefit. He is a deal maker, not an ideologue. And so ultimately, what the media has failed to understand is that this guy is a deal maker, and he is going to support and be allied with other men primarily, although it can be women, who have the same worldview as him. The reason why he gets along with Kanye West and Tom Brady is because they see a reflection of themselves in Donald Trump. He sees himself as a superstar. He's not, like I said before, in Jay-Z terms, he's not a businessman. He's a businessman, right? And so Donald Trump, I think, and Kim Jong-un actually will see reflections of each other in one another, because they are both strongmen leaders who ultimately govern based on the charisma of their ability to encourage people to follow them. And that's why I think Trump, when the State Department's like, oh, you can't meet with Kim Jong-un, this will violate years of State Department protocol. He's like, fuck that. And you know who respects it? I think Kim Jong-un. Because he says, oh, maybe I'm going to be dealing with somebody who wants to make a deal and has the balls to do it, as opposed to somebody who's going to be concerned about making sure that all his egghead career department advisors are not upset. And so as a result, I've been saying this for a little while, I think that having two people who are similar in some ways is more respectful than having one guy who is trying to execute it's like you ever see two people who fight, and if they fight, the style makes the fight, right? If you have one guy who's a tactician, like Mayweather, and you have another guy who's a big puncher, then the fight's not going to be very good. Because Mayweather's just never going to get near him. He's going to continue to spar with him, and no result from the fight's actually going to happen. Basically, the status quo is going to happen. You get two guys who get in the ring and throw haymakers at each other. Eventually, if one guy doesn't knock the other guy out, do you know what ends up happening? They end up leaning up against each other because they're both out of breath, and they end up having grudging admiration for one another. You see those style fights? You know what I'm talking about? Both guys come into the ring, and they're just throwing every haymaker that they have. Two like backyard brawlers. And when they exhaust themselves with all the haymakers they've thrown, ultimately they're standing in the center of the ring, and one guy's head's on the other guy's shoulder, and the other guy's head's on the other guy's shoulder, and they are both leaning up against each other. And they have come to find a grudging respect for one another because they both have thrown all the big punches. And then maybe the result happens or whatever else, but you see them shaking after the fight. I think that's what happened with Trump and Kim Jong-un. Now, Trump has obviously got a lot more assets to bring to bear on Kim Jong-un. But I think all of the tweets, the dotards, the Rocket Man, all of that, in the end, they found themselves staring in a mirror, and they're like, you know what? I kind of like this guy. I kind of think I can get a deal done with him. And in the process, Trump has brought to bear all this economic pressure on Kim Jong-un. And there is an ability here, I think, to solve one of the most intractable global crises that we have ever seen. I think we are right now facing what might well be a modern day Berlin Wall coming down. And the two Koreas, even if they don't immediately become united, are going to become so much more connected because they share a common history, just like East and West Germany eventually reconnected. And guess what? Ultimately, what wins? Freedom of thought wins. And that ties in with why I see myself as a traditional liberal now, even though I call myself a radical moderate. Traditional liberals believe in a crazy idea, debating ideas. They believe in freedom of thought. Look at how often now, anytime somebody, I just saw Chance the Rapper do this. Look at how often now, anytime somebody strays outside of the far left-wing orthodoxy, they end up having to issue an apology. When's the last time you saw somebody who's quote-unquote conservative apologize to conservative people for what they said? It's amazing how the political parties will change places. The people who demand apologies are all theoretically left-wingers who believe in tolerance and diversity and tolerance of thought and everything else, except they don't actually believe that. They will only tolerate you if you believe the exact same thing as they do. And so this is kind of fascinating to me to see. I've never seen a conservative person apologize for an opinion. I've never seen somebody come out and say, you know what, I misspoke when I said this. You have to apologize in the far left wing right now if you say something that violates their dogma. If you have the audacity to say something that is legitimately true, if it violates the dogma, then you have to apologize for it. This is a big part of what my book is about right now. And as a result, I think that this peace that we could potentially have between Korea and North Korea and South Korea is a major story that most in the media won't cover. And that's because most in the media now, they only cover bad news. There's a great article that I read recently which charted the difference between the lifestyles, like the quality of life that we have in America today, and the negativity associated with the stories surrounding America. And there's a profound divergence. And I don't know why it is. I think it's probably because everybody's desperate to make a buck. But there is so much negativity in America today, and the country has literally never been better. The average median income, never been higher. Unemployment rate for all minorities, never been lower. The overall wealth of the country, never been better. The amount of people dying of disease, murder, everything else, never lower. Yet we have this entire cottage industry of people who are designed to make Americans and the people in the world think that we live in a terrifying place. We don't. Everything has never been better. Oh, is somebody serious? How about the homeless? I'm going to have to pause for a minute. There's a difference between perfection and betterment. You loser motherfuckers who are sitting around saying, well, there's still homeless people in America. Are you real? Like, I mean this honestly. Are you fucking real? There are a lot less homeless people now than there were in 1850. There are a lot less homeless people than there were in 1950. Perfection is not the same thing as the betterment of society. I'm going to have to block this guy. I swear to God, you are such a dumb motherfucker that I'm going to have to block you. Was this the guy? What was the guy's name who I happened to look over and he said, what about homeless people? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about in the way that you don't understand how you actually live in the world. I just had to block that guy. It's rare that I see somebody so fucking stupid that I have to block him. That's the kind of guy who's an executive right now in many of the media companies. You could walk in right now to that guy and you could say to him, hey, the world is an amazing place. Every data point is incredible. And they're going to anecdotally find something that isn't perfect and point out that. That's the kind of world we live in. And if you follow stories, one of the most amazing things, and I headed into this yesterday, one of the most amazing things about media stories now is many of the negative media stories have moved on from some bad act happened to me. And the new story is my feelings are hurt. Go read mainstream stories now and look how often it's the story's entire basis is something happened and now somebody's feelings are hurt. That's the entire basis for the story. It's not something happened and someone died. It's not something happened and boy, this is crazy how many people are dying. It's something happened and somebody's feelings are hurt. It is absolutely unbelievable where we are. All right, gambling picks. I'm going to send you into the weekend on a winning note. Respect the picks. Jason Whitlock wasn't respecting the picks, and then I had to show up and dunk on him, go 3-1 in the most recent games. I'm going to pull up all these games. I'm going to give them to you right now. Gambling picks, boys and girls. Yes. The other thing I would say is, if you think America's not very good right now, you should go live in another country for a year. Preferably make it a third world country. And go see what problems other countries face. The problems that we face in America today are not real problems relative to the problems that face the globe as a whole. The truth of the matter is this. If you live in America today, you've never been more fortunate. The poorest person, this is a great stat. India's got over 1 billion people right now, right? The poorest people in America would be in the top 20% most wealthy in India. I want to repeat that for you because most people have no idea of what the global perspective is. The absolute poorest people in America today would be in the 20% most wealthy in India. India is, I think, the second most populous country in the world. If you are the poorest people in America right now, you would be in the top 20% most wealthy in India right now. That kind of puts into perspective how spoiled Americans are in general. Even poor people in America today tend to have housing. They tend to have as much food as they want. They tend to have heating, air, cable, cell phones. Like, we've lost the ability to understand what actual poverty is unless you've been to other parts of the world. Raptors, Wizards. Raptors are going to win outright. So the Wizards are 1.5-point favorites. Raptors are closing out this series. Cavs, Pacers. I think that my boy Oladipo is going to come back and actually make some shots instead of going 7 for 35 like he has the past two games. I think the Pacers win and force a game 7. Indiana's a 1.5-point favorite right now. Thunder, Jazz. Jazz are closing it out. -6.5. I'm going Jazz. It's going to end big time in that way. And the Preds are going to win. It's tough to gamble on hockey because it's minus 150. Preds are going to win tonight in Nashville. Love all of you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Have great weekends. I'll be back on Monday. If something wild happens, I'll hop on Periscope or Facebook. If you enjoy the show, share it with your friends. I am Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Coverage. I love all the comments that I'm seeing. Public toilets still run out of toilet paper. Yep, everything's not perfect. DBAP, boys and girls. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Have fabulous weekends. I will see all of you in the near future. DBAP. See y'all.